Shane McMahon could be headed to AEW. This according to new insight we have learned from Conrad Thompson, who claims that there is interest in McMahon potentially joining All Elite Wrestling. We're going to talk about this crazy story that honestly could turn the entire wrestling world upside down. We're also going to talk about John Cena commenting for one of the first times about potential retirement from WWE. All that much more coming up right here in this video. So be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right, so for those of you who may not be as aware, JR on his podcast, Grillin' JR, really stirred the pot a bit when he mentioned that, we could see Shane McMahon maybe in AEW at some point. And the way it came across was more so something he said in passing as you never know what's going to happen in pro wrestling. And while that is true, Shane McMahon in AEW would be very far-fetched, right? Well, according to his co-host, Conrad Thompson, maybe not. Here is what Conrad Thompson had to say. This is an aggregation from Wrestle Purist. Says, quote, according to Conrad Thompson, Shane McMahon has reached out to AEW talent to discuss the idea of joining the company. The quote is as follows. There was a friend of ours. He went out of his way to text me, hey, that's not as crazy as you think. I know for sure that Shane McMahon has reached out to wrestlers on the AEW roster to at least hypothetically discuss the idea. Insane that is a sentence that is happening or coming out of my mouth even, or Conrad's mouth. Insane that is a thing that allegedly happened. Look, again, this is Conrad Thompson does not claim to be a wrestling journalist, wrestling reporter. He is, however, very well resourced in the wrestling world. He is arguably, I think, one of the farthest reaching as far as views and weekly clicks. His platforms are as far reaching as anyone in all of professional wrestling media. So while we, need to take it with a grain of salt, you also take it with a grain of credibility as well. But let's talk about it, right? Shane McMahon, AEW, what this all means. First, let's talk about, the possibility of it happening or the likelihood of it happening. Will Shane McMahon go to AEW? I don't put it at a majority. It's not over 50% that he would go to AEW, but it's so weird because every time you hear rumblings of things like this, every time we hear, these conversations have happened or whatever, things can happen really fast in pro wrestling. Mercedes Moné was in negotiations with WWE in the waning days of 2023. And then, seemingly right as negotiations broke down, she was All Elite, or at least she had agreed to terms with AEW. So we shouldn't say, I think, oh man, this is just far-fetched. It'll never happen because, again, Punk is back in WWE somehow after everything that happened in AEW. We are in a situation where Becky Lynch is still a free agent. Anything is possible in pro wrestling. You can never say never at this point. Vince McMahon, Shane's father, is no longer running WWE, something that would thought to have been unfathomable aside from McMahon dying in the chair, which many people believed was going to happen. So when we're here and we're hearing about this, it is a massive story. And the possibility of him going there, I think, definitely more likely than it was yesterday. But again, I would not bet on it, but it's something to keep an eye on for sure. As far as how you would bring him in, what you would do, I do think that there is a role for Shane McMahon, both from a business standpoint and also just from a storyline standpoint. First, let's talk about business. Why would it be good business to bring in Shane McMahon? Horrible business to bring in Vince McMahon for AEW. But again, and this is if you brought him in as a talent, I don't think Shane will be doing anything backstage, and I don't think he probably should be doing anything backstage given his last stint in WWE booking, which was not great. That 2022 Royal Rumble was a Shane McMahon brainchild, and it was an abomination of a pay-per-view, if we're being honest. But as a talent, Shane McMahon is over as anyone else is going to be. There's a reason why he kept coming back to do big matches. It was because he got a pop and because he drew ratings. People wanted to see Shane McMahon. So if I'm AEW, there is an incentive as far as interest, as far as buzz to bring him in. The question, to go along with it is how you do it as far as the booking. And that needs to be solidified beforehand. You can't just have him come in and like, oh my God, it's Shane McMahon, by God, Michael. You can't just do that. You need to have a storyline reason. And I think a big storyline reason for McMahon to come in. And I do think that there is a future, if this happens, let's say in the next 6, 7, whatever months, where McMahon comes in and he begins recruiting former WWE guys, potentially guys he feels like are his guys. And it's almost like a hostile takeover of the company. And you could run an invasion storyline and a good one using members of the AEW roster, using members of the former WWE roster who may have gone to AEW, may have gone to other wrestling companies, and had McMahon basically do this hostile takeover of AEW from the inside, which would cause maybe the Young Bucks, the EVPs who are heel right now, to turn back babyface to defend their company against what they have always claimed that they were defending against like jaded old WWE guys. And there's a lot of interesting storyline elements there, and it could involve all of the top talent, and I think it could make great stuff for Blood and Guts next year. That's all I'm saying. But again, far-fetched fantasy booking for sure, but look, the fact that we are talking about this in 2024 and the fact that it is that McMahon allegedly is reaching out, it is crazy. This is something that you could not have even imagined just 2 years ago, and look at where we are. And for those who want to say like, oh my God, AEW focusing too much on WWE, blah, 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 it's weird, right? Because AEW is always going to be in a position where people are going to talk about WWE because WWE is the bigger company and whatever. But at the same time, the way that AEW has always thought of pro wrestling and the way that they've always booked a pro wrestling is that professional wrestling history is AEW history. They lean on stuff that has happened in other companies to build that lore of their talent. And I think that's a good thing. It's a refreshing thing. It was something that was missing for years upon years in WWE and only recently was brought back. And now we are seeing that in WWE. We are seeing Bullet Club mentioned on TV. We are hearing ROH, a company that Tony Khan owns, mentioned on TV. Histories of all these talent being mentioned. But no one has the same criticism for that because WWE is the bigger company or because it fits their narrative. Either way, I don't think it's a negative inherently. The one thing you can't do if you're AEW is solely lean on WWE as the draw. It needs to be, it should be, I should say, yeah, of course, you're former WWE guys, but this is Shane McMahon's thing. This is, like any kind of like a new thing. But there's ways to do it that I think could be not only interesting, but also profitable very much for AEW, excuse me. But I guess we'll see what happens there. Obviously, Shane McMahon coming in would be a massive deal. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about all that as we move on to our next story, that being John Cena. Let's get right into it and talk about the former 16-time world champion who may be retiring at some point pretty soon. So John Cena did an interview with People magazine where he discussed, among many things, how he hopes to be physically active well into his 90s and also his future in WWE and potential retirement. Here is what he had to say recently in this interview. He says, quote, "I know my WWE journey is coming to an end, but fitness was a part of my life long before the WWE journey started. Fitness will be a part of my life, hopefully as long as my heart is beating. So the WWE has been a great chapter of my life. It's year 23 for me, and the sun's setting on that chapter in the book, but fitness will never not be a part of my life." That is John Cena basically saying that enjoy me while you got me, because you don't got me for much longer. And at that point, we won't see him. So let's talk about it. We have been hearing, rumblings of John Cena and in his future, whether or not he would continue on with WWE, whether or not he would stay on as a talent. And he's obviously become someone who WWE brings in as a very special attraction, maybe once a year for lucky at this point. But the idea of John Cena retiring, I think, is interesting, but I don't think John Cena will ever formally retire in that sense. I think I could see him doing something very close to what The Rock has been doing, and that is taking long hiatuses and then coming back when he's needed or coming back when the story calls for it. And I think for Cena, like, that is just something that makes a lot of sense. It's something that makes way more sense for WWE, because you never want to let go of a big star like John Cena, especially as his star is growing even farther as he gets more and more prominent roles in cinema. So it seems to me that John Cena's chapter as a full-time WWE star is obviously over. It's been over for a very long time. I believe, like, he has not been a full-time competitor really in WWE since like 2016. So we are some 8 years on from that. And like, look, that is the reality. It happened. Like, Cena's full-time career came and went right before our eyes, and we didn't even see it, right? So as far as like, will he ever formally retire, all that kind of stuff, I don't see that happening. But I do see him, like, I think, taking longer hiatuses as time goes on. Because the truth is, Cena doesn't need WWE as much. And WWE, to be honest, as great as it is having Cena and having him for these one-offs, WWE doesn't need John Cena anymore. And that's fine. That's okay. At a certain time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, arguably the biggest draw in professional wrestling history, he was gone. And everything kept moving. Was it as good as it was with Stone Cold? No. You could argue WWE's better than they were under the John Cena era, which is more of an indictment on McMahon than it is John Cena. But things move on. Things move forward, and people do as well. So as far as will John Cena retire formally, again, I don't believe that it's going to be some major announcement. He will be in the Hall of Fame one day. Maybe that'll be like the, hey, look, it's over. But also, we've seen people wrestle after they've been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So you never know. Again, I guess the moral of this entire video has been never say never. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about John Cena? Will he retire from WWE? Will we leave the memories alone? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, if you haven't already done so, do me a big time favor and smash that like button so as many people as possible see this video. Subscribe for daily videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single one. Until next time, though, I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.